Welcome to What's It Worth in the Real Estate Basics course. Congratulations for getting out and applying the material you learned in the previous lesson. You'll find that the more action items you get done each week, the closer you will get to complete your next deal. We understand that for some, you really had to stretch yourself and move outside your comfort zone. For others, maybe the previous week's action items were just an extension of what you were already doing. One way or the other, you're moving in the right direction. At the conclusion of the last lesson, we discussed the following action items. 1. Evaluate 8 to 10 realtors and select 2 to 4 you may want to work with. 2. Use these realtors and online resources to help you establish your search criteria. 3. Complete the target area demographics and property characteristics worksheets in your workbook. And 4. Select and list 10 properties in your target areas to pursue at a future date. If you have not completed any of these action items, we encourage you to finish them before moving forward with this material. During this lesson, Jan and Bob will continue to discuss finding and qualifying motivated sellers, using comparables to calculate fair market value, and running the numbers on a property based on the strategy you intend to use. Before you begin this lesson, please take the time to print out the workbook file. Also, have a pen and paper ready so you can take notes on the points you want to remember. Let's begin.
First, in today's lesson tips for success, we have an acronym to help you remember the 5 key elements of success in real estate investing. Remember the word plans. The P is for people. You need good, reliable people to work with on your real estate transactions. L is for location. The location where you invest and when you invest are both critical to your success. A is for ambition. You've got to be ambitious. Energy and a wholehearted dedication to your business are essential if you expect to succeed. N is for negotiation. You must be able to understand all the sides, communicate effectively, and find common ground. Finally, the S is for strategy. You need to be smart and creative in coming up with your plan to make money from the location you have selected.
In just the first 2 lessons, you have already learned a lot of important concepts. Based on the lessons you have completed, at this point, you should be able to describe the basic principles and terms used in real estate investing and name the key resources available to help you find and select attractive target areas in properties. From this, you should have chosen at least 4 target areas and identified the best property type for you to focus on in each area. You should have selected your personal property search criteria and chosen 10 properties to investigate. If you have not completed the action steps from last week, you may have difficulty with some of the concepts we are introducing in this lesson. We recommend that you finish those action items prior to continuing this lesson. In this lesson, we will continue to build upon the knowledge you have acquired thus far. Upon completion of today's lesson, you will be able to identify motivated sellers, refine your property search criteria, determine fair market values and maximum offer amounts, and be able to explain the different investment strategies you can use to build wealth.
In the last lesson, you've learned some of the words that motivated sellers use in their ads. This is simply a guide and is not always a true indicator of motivation. The sellers may simply be trying to influence a potential buyer into thinking they are motivated. Sellers may use certain words in an effort to attract buyers. These words may give you some idea about their situation and desire to sell, but you need to follow up with a number of additional steps to see if they are truly motivated. One of the best ways to determine the seller's motivation is to evaluate their situation and condition. There are a number of factors in a seller's life that may result in a higher level of motivation to sell. In order to find a suitable property, it will be necessary to identify these factors. When you call the seller, you will ask a series of questions to identify their level of motivation. We will teach you how to implement these questions during this lesson. In many cases, the information you gather is a good indicator of motivation, but it's not foolproof. The true test of motivation is getting the seller to agree to your price or terms. Now, I make a definite distinction with the statement price or terms. You will get either price or terms, but usually not both in real estate. Well, what are terms? Terms are everything but the price. They are things like the interest rate, time frame of the deal, closing date, and the monthly payment. Ascertaining the seller's motivation at this early stage in the process takes time. You will need to continue evaluating and probing throughout the process of investigation and negotiation. Let's take a few minutes to look a little closer at the first two methods listed here for identifying motivated sellers. Several situations could motivate a seller. These include a job transfer, a failing business, a layoff, purchase of another home, or they might simply have poor spending habits. We often refer to the conditions that a motivated seller might be dealing with as the 4 Ds: divorce, death, disaster, or disability. Typically, these sellers are affected by adverse conditions outside of their control. These motivated sellers are looking for someone to help them out right now. As I mentioned, the second step in determining if a seller is motivated is to ask a series of probing questions. I will give you some of the questions that you will want to ask in a minute, but first, as you prepare to have this conversation with the seller, keep the following principles in mind. First, always be real, genuine, and honest. The seller will be much more comfortable speaking with a real person rather than someone reciting a script. Your personality should come through in these conversations. When you allow sellers to see who you are, they will feel more comfortable with you. They will tell you more about their home and may be willing to negotiate price or terms. Next, have a plan. Think about what you're trying to accomplish before the call. Prepare by asking yourself, does this person and property fit my criteria? What is my bottom line? What would constitute a deal breaker? When you get answers to these questions, you will know if the property or seller meets your investment criteria. Remember, your profit is made when you buy, not when you sell. You need every deal to be profitable before you buy. You will get to the point where you will quickly know if a property meets your criteria. Don't try to make the numbers work or the property fit your mold. If it doesn't fit, move on to the next property. Third, protect your time. Don't waste time on deals that do not meet your investment criteria. Just move on to the next deal. Real estate investing is a numbers game. Not all deals will work out for you, and not all properties are deals. If you pursue truly motivated sellers, you will have plenty of deals and profit. Finally, follow up or pack it up. Some sellers are not as motivated now as they will be next month. Many people list their homes based on what they paid for it 1 to 4 years ago. Many markets are not sustaining past values, so sellers need to get a reality check and then relist their property for the current market price. Remember, depending upon the market, certain areas have properties that have been listed for at least 120 days. When sellers realize that their property is not going to sell quickly, they may be more flexible in order to sell it. If you track what is going on with these properties and periodically check back with the sellers, you might find some great deals as well as develop a greater rapport with the seller. The questions you pose to the seller will change over time as you try different approaches and come up with new ideas. The following is a list of some questions you could ask your sellers to determine their level of motivation. You will not ask all of them each time. You might only go through a few before recognizing the seller is not motivated to sell right now. We recommend you practice these questions this week by taking the list of 10 properties you put together previously in the last lesson and call the sellers. Even if you know the answer you'll receive to some of the questions, you should still ask. You never know when the seller's situation may change in your favor, and now you have the beginning stages of a real estate transaction. When you ask these probing questions, you'll want to listen carefully to the answers. But what should you listen for? How will you know by the answer if the seller is truly motivated? Here are some examples of what you will hear motivated sellers say. As you listen, think about what these examples have in common.
I'm being transferred for work and don't know what to do since I can't possibly afford 2 payments. I didn't even know the house was going to tax sale before you contacted me.
I just don't have the money to fix up the house. I would just like to sell it and be done with it.
I can't manage that house, living out of state, and the tenants taking advantage of me all the time.
Did you notice what all these comments have in common? It's a sense of urgency or discouragement. These sellers are basically saying, I need a way out. Please give me a way out right now. Your workbook contains a seller interview form to help you remember what you need to ask during the call and to help you track seller responses. After each call, transfer all pertinent information to the motivated seller lead sheet found in your workbook, along with your assessment regarding the seller's motivation. Go ahead and make your calls now. When you finish, come back and continue the lesson.
How did it go? Did you find some good possibilities? Once you have asked your questions, what do you do? Do you remember the personal property search criteria you set up in the last session? The next step is to evaluate each property to see if it meets your criteria. If it doesn't, move on to the next one on your list or start looking for more properties to call on. If you keep coming across properties with unmotivated sellers or properties that do not meet your search criteria, you may need to find other resources for potential properties or refine your search criteria. Ask yourself the questions listed on the screen and then revise your property search criteria if necessary. After talking with the sellers and reviewing their answers, determine if the property meets your property search criteria. If it does, schedule an appointment to go view the property. This is the first step in evaluating the property and your target area. During your visit, you will want to evaluate the property in terms of the 7 factors listed on the screen. When you visit the property, make sure you leave your emotions and expectations at home. The property may be nicer than the home you currently live in, or it may be in a state of deferred maintenance, which means it needs a lot of work. Whatever the state of the property, keep your emotions out of real estate investing, or you will lose money.
When you arrive at the prospective property, make note of what's going on in the neighborhood. You will be able to answer some of your questions just by looking around. For instance, you will want to determine, is the neighborhood well kept, or is it run down with graffiti? What is next to around that prospective property? What kind of development is taking place in the area? Are there a lot of homes up for sale? If so, why? Other questions will require that you do some research. For instance, you'll want to determine whether the neighborhood was once a hot area that is now dying, whether there have been major zoning changes in the area, or whether any additional zoning changes are being considered. It is not necessary to answer all of these questions right now. However, keep them in mind as you continue to work in your target area.
Those are some good points, Bob. When you arrive at the home, you should also note the condition of the exterior of the home. Does it have curb appeal? Does it have potential? What needs to be fixed or repaired? What is the condition of the roof, concrete, and facade? Does it have rain gutters and downspouts? Look for signs of potential problems. For instance, does the land slope away from or toward the home? Are there cracks in the foundation, facade, or walkways? Is the porch sagging? Are there any signs of an insect infestation? Make notes of any repairs that are needed as you walk around the exterior of the home. You will base your estimates of needed repairs on those notes, so keep a careful record of what you see. Eventually, you will transfer these notes and your estimates to the property inspection form found in your workbook. We will discuss these issues in greater detail in a later lesson that focuses on home inspections.
When you enter the home, is the floor plan appealing or is it choppy? The main rooms include the family living, dining, and bedrooms. Are these rooms adequate in size? What is the condition of the flooring, painting, and lighting? Are there stains on the ceilings or walls? Do you see any cracks in the wallboard or plaster? Make note of any repairs as you walk through the home.
Bathrooms are always a key selling feature. Are the bathrooms large, well lit, and updated? What is the condition of the shower stall or tub, sink, and commode? How is the flooring and cabinetry? Any water stains? Do all the faucets work? Any visible leaks or mold issues to note? Does the plumbing work? What color is the water coming out of the faucet? If it has a reddish tint or contains sediment, it's an indication of potentially serious problems. Again, make note of any problems or needed repairs.
That's right, Jan. And here are some questions that you need to consider and notes you need to make when you walk through the kitchen. What is the condition of the cabinets, flooring, and appliances? Look to see if they are well maintained and working. Is the design appealing? Is there adequate cabinet and storage space? Has it been recently updated? Any signs of water damage or mold?
What is the condition of the basement or crawl space? Are there a lot of cracks and gaps in the walls or floor? Are there dips and valleys in the flooring above? Do structural elements appear to be strong and solid? Any sign of leaks or mold? Have there been any additions to the property? Did they have a permit to do them?
The final section of your inspection involves the major mechanical systems. How is the house heated and cooled? What is the condition of these systems? How old are they, and have they been maintained? Are there signs of distress, rust, or stains? Are repairs or replacements needed? How is the electrical system? Does it have circuit breakers or fuses? What is the condition of the plumbing? Does it have lead pipes? How does the water heater look? Again, make note of any problems or needed repairs. At this point, you are just making a preliminary inspection to see if these systems have the appearance of being well maintained, but you should carefully make note of any problems or needed repairs. Your initial offer must take the anticipated cost of these repairs into account. If you don't notice a major problem, it could mean the difference between making a profit or losing money on your investment. Once your offer is accepted, you'll want to have a property inspector come in to check things out in greater detail.
Now that you have a list of the required repairs, you can calculate how much you need to buy the home below fair market value to make a profit. Fair market value is simply what someone today will pay for the home in today's market. Once you know this dollar amount, you can determine if the deal meets your investment criteria. Some of you might ask, how do I know how much things will cost? You have at least 3 options. You can get local contractors to give you a free quote on your repairs. You will want them to itemize their repairs and separate the labor from the parts. This way you will learn what things really cost. It will also help you determine if you are getting fair quotes. We recommend asking at least 2 contractors to give you quotes. Second, you can go to a local home product store to get another quote on the cost of the various parts or appliances. Some will even give you quotes to do the work. Finally, if you are handy, you can cut your expenses by doing the work yourself. Just remember, if you get into the repair business, you are reducing the time available to look for more properties. You may be tempted to make major improvement, but be careful. You do not want to over-improve the property. Go through a couple of other homes in the area and check out the amenities offered in these homes. It would be a mistake to improve the property beyond what you could sell it for in that area. You will find that most neighborhoods have a range that properties will sell within. You need to stay within the neighborhood's price range and improve with amenities common to homes in that area. After repair value is the value of a property after all of the repairs are made in a given target area. A lender will want to know this ballpark amount when you go to obtain a rehab loan. It is most commonly seen with hard money lenders. Generally, we would assume that comps you are looking at have sold for the fair market value in that target area. You do not want to exceed this amount. Please understand, improvements are great and many homes need updating, but you need to know your limits or else you will lose money.
The next step is to identify what price other homes in the area are currently selling for. These are commonly called comps. Comps are properties that have sold recently in the area that have comparable features to your property of interest. Why are they important? Comps are an indicator of how much people are willing to pay for a home in the area right now. Accurate comparables help ensure you never pay more for the home than you could sell it for today. Typically, real estate agents can pull comps on your prospective properties. Always work with investor-friendly real estate agents. They know how we work and what our concerns are. A traditional buyer's agent will not understand why investors need so many comps on a regular basis. Before you start working with an agent, ask if he or she works with investors or get referrals from other investors in the area. Real estate agents have access to the Multiple Listing Service, or MLS. This is where all homes being sold through real estate agents are listed. Once a property is sold, the agents input information about it and its selling price into the system. Other agents can then perform searches for this information and print summaries of the property and what it sold for. Try to get printouts of at least as little as 3 or as many as 9 comps for each property. If the comps you gather are not readily comparable to your prospective property, you could end up offering more than the property's fair market value. Your comp should meet the following criteria if they are going to provide you with accurate information. Your comp should be properties that have been sold, not active listings. They should have sold within the last 3 months. Any longer than that, and the value could be off. Be sure your comps are within a mile and no more than a few miles from the prospective property. If you see a big difference in the value of the comps, it may be that there are dramatic differences in the neighborhoods. For instance, there could be a beachfront property across the street or a slum on the other side of the railroad tracks. Finally, make sure the comps are similar to the prospective property in terms of the basic characteristics like square footage, number of bedrooms and bathrooms, structural design, and features, acreage, and age. Evaluate each comparable and see if they meet this criteria. Once you receive the comps, you can start calculating the property's current fair market value from the remaining comparables. Jan, why don't you give us the math?
Thanks, Bob. Thanks a lot. Actually, it's really not that hard to calculate fair market value. Now that you have the comparables, the next step in determining fair market value is to figure out the cost per square foot for each comp property. To do this, take the comp price and divide it by the home's total square footage. The result is the cost per square. Next, remove the highest and the lowest value. If you only have 3 comps, though, you will need to keep all of them. Then, add up the cost per square foot for each home. Divide this number by the total number of comps you have used. The result is the average cost per square foot for all the comps. Finally, take this average cost per square foot and multiply it by the total square feet of the prospective property. The result is the estimated fair market value of the property in that area right now. Let's go through an example of how this would work. Let's say I have received the 6 comps shown in this table for my target property. The first thing I do is divide the price of each comp by its square footage and put the price per square foot for each comp property in the right column of the table. Now, notice that comp 1 has the highest cost per square foot and comp 6 has the lowest, so I will not include those when I add the cost per square foot for the other 4 properties. When I divide that total by 4, the number of comps remaining, I get the average cost per square foot. My target property happens to have 1,800 square feet. I multiply that by the average cost per square foot that I just computed to get $217,158 for the fair market value. And that's it. That wasn't so hard, was it? If I lost you on any of that, just click the back arrow to go through it one more time.
Now that you know the fair market value, you have the first part of the formula necessary to determine the correct amount to offer on your property. There are several other costs, though, that need to be part of the equation. Closing costs are generally covered by the buyer unless negotiated otherwise. Closing costs include escrow fees, title searches, appraisals, and home inspections. These fees can vary from area to area. The following are some guidelines based on national averages. Escrow fees can be as little as $150 and range up to $250. Title searches and title insurance are around 1% of the remaining balance. Single-family residence appraisals range between $350 to $450. Home inspections run between $250 and $400. We'll talk more about closing costs in a later lesson, but for now, just recognize that while all of these fees could be a factor at some time or another in your deals, you will find not all of them will be required in every deal. Some costs are negotiable depending upon whether you're the seller or the buyer in the transaction. However, we suggest that you calculate these 5 costs into every deal, and if you don't have to pay one or more, that is simply extra money in your pocket. Remember, though, fees can occur both buying and selling real estate. You will have holding costs to consider for every property. These are the costs you incur after you have purchased the home but before you sell it. They include fire and hazard insurance, utilities, mortgage payments, and property taxes. Identify these costs because they do fluctuate from area to area. At the time of purchase, you will not know exactly the length of time you will hold on to the property. We suggest you include costs for at least 3 months and up to 6 months if market conditions are slow. We suggest as well that you practice calculating these numbers on each of your properties so you can get used to how it works. This will help you pinpoint some of the common costs involved in doing real estate transactions. Jan, I'm going to let you go through the steps for figuring out what the maximum offer amount should be.
Thanks, Bob. At this point, you should have all the information you need to calculate your offer amount. We are going to use the Fast Cash formula for determining the offer amount. Fast Cash is the investment strategy you use when you want to purchase and then resell a property quickly. You start with the property's fair market value and subtract the expected costs. This includes your total estimate of repairs, closing costs, which are generally around 3% of the sale price, and holding costs for 90 days. You should also include the real estate agent's commission. It will cover your cost to hire one if you need to when you sell. If not, it is extra profit. Finally, you will want to subtract the amount of profit you want to make from the deal. We recommend at least 10%. This gives you your maximum offer amount for the property. You cannot go over this amount and be confident that you will make money. However, you can, of course, go under it and make even more money. Here's an example of how you would calculate your maximum offer amount. Let's say the fair market value for your property came to $180,360 and your repairs to $6,100. If we assume that closing costs are about 3% of the purchase price, they would come to $6,900. Let's also assume that I calculate 90 days worth of holding costs, and they come to $6,255. A 6% real estate agent commission would be an additional $13,800. If you subtract all these from the fair market value, you get $127,305. This is the maximum amount that you should offer for this property.
Knowing how to calculate fair market values and offer amounts is an important first step. But there are a lot of different ways to make money in real estate, and so before actually going out and making some offers, you need to determine your investment strategy. You will base your strategy on the amount of time and money you have to invest and how quickly you want to get out of the deal when the time comes. One strategy would be to produce capital right away. Another is to make it over a long period of time. The 3 main investment strategies are fast cash, cash flow, and buy and hold.
The fast cash investment strategy entails of making a smaller amount of money from a real estate transaction very quickly. You can use any of several techniques to do this. In the bird dogging technique, you find properties and collect a finder's fee by turning them over to other real estate investors. With assignment of contract, you find properties, put them under contract, and then assign the contract over to other real estate investors for a larger fee. Under buy and sell, you find finance, and purchase properties and then sell them for more than you bought them to owner-occupants or other investors. And finally, with buy, fix, and sell, you find, purchase, fix up, and then sell them for more than you bought them to owner-occupants or other investors. In the buy and sell and the buy, fix, and sell techniques, your offer needs to be low enough that you can sell the property for a quick profit. It has to be the right type of property to execute this strategy too. Some property types do not effectively support this strategy. Single-family residences are the best property types to use successfully with this strategy. They are the easiest to fix and sell relatively quickly. Since you want to be able to turn these properties around within 3 months, current market trends affect your ability to succeed with the fast cash strategy as well. The cash flow strategy involves buying a property for lower than the asking price. When you sell it, you receive a small down payment, a stream of monthly payments, and then a large sum of money at a later date and time. With this strategy, you buy properties that need some minor repairs and then sell to credit-challenged buyers. These are the buyers who are interested in these financing options because they are not able to get financing from traditional lenders. Here are some techniques that fall under the cash flow heading. With the leased options technique, you secure financing and purchase the property. Then you sign a lease option contract with a tenant. The tenant rents the property but has the option to buy the property at a later date. You let the tenant fix up the property while you collect monthly payments until they exercise their option. With sandwich lease options, you find and sign a lease option contract for a property. Then you sign a lease option contract with a third party who rents the property with the option to buy from you at a later date. Again, you let this renter fix up the property while you collect monthly payments until they exercise their option. When the sublease tenant buyer is ready to buy, you exercise your option, purchase the property, and then sell it for more than you bought it. In the seller financing technique, you find, finance, and then sell the property and negotiate the monthly payments, but you act like the bank for the buyer. You require the buyer to pay a higher interest rate than the one you have secured and are paying. The buyer will have to pay back the loan within a specific time, or they may opt to refinance. With these techniques, your offer should be lower than the asking price, but you can buy the property a lot closer to fair market value than with the other strategies because you're offering term, not price. You can ask for a purchase price at or slightly above fair market value. Some property types do not support this strategy effectively. As we discussed in the previous lesson, single-family residences are the best property types to use with the cash flow strategy. Current market trends do not dramatically affect your ability to execute this type of strategy because credit-challenged buyers are always buying homes. The condition of the rental market does impact the success of this strategy from time to time. If rents go too low, the property may not be suitable for cash flow.
The buy and hold strategy consists of buying a property based on its ability to produce income and appreciate over time. At a later date and time, the property could be sold for a profit. In the meantime, the property should generate a steady monthly stream of income over the time it is being held. Under the buy and hold strategy, you could elect to buy and hold either single-family residences, multiplex units, or land. If you buy land, you will want it to be land that is used for some income-generating purpose, such as farming or mining. Your offer will need to be low enough that you can rent the property for a profit, but it does not have to be as low as the fast cash strategy. It needs to be the right type of property and location to execute this strategy. Single-family residences are just one property type you can use successfully with this strategy. Multiplexes can bring stronger and more consistent income in some cases. The current market trends will affect your ability to rent using this strategy. If rents are dropping, you'll want to consider buying the property using a different strategy. We have introduced the strategies here, but haven't really given you enough information on the pros and cons of these different strategies in order for you to make a final decision. We will provide more detail in later lessons.
We hope you've enjoyed listening to What's It Worth with Jan Eliason and Bob Grimm. They discussed how to recognize if a seller is motivated, how to evaluate a property, how to figure out what it's worth, and what you should offer. These are steps that you'll need to go through with each of your deals. To become comfortable with these steps, you should complete the following action items this week. 1. Call the sellers of the 10 properties you identified in the previous lesson and ask the probing questions we discussed to determine seller motivation. Remember, we need highly motivated sellers, not convenience sellers. 2. Use the seller interview form in your workbook to make a record of your conversations. Then transfer the information to the motivated seller lead sheet. 3. Schedule an appointment and visit your top 5 properties. 4. Determine the repair costs for each of the 5 properties. 5. Practice calculating the market value and your offer amount for each. And 6. Be sure to take the time to determine the investment strategy you feel would work best for each of the properties. You will notice that the lessons in this course build on previous material, much like a math course that you may have taken in high school or college. So you'll want to make sure you complete the action items for this week to acquire the knowledge and experience necessary to better understand the concepts taught in the next lesson. Also, make sure and reference the activities in your workbook for further practice. Now, as you go out and apply the principles taught in this course, we assume some of you may run into challenges. When you do, remember this statement: an obstacle is often an unrecognized opportunity. Thanks for listening. We wish you great success as you complete the action items for this week.